So welcome all to the Copywriting Clinic number 8. Uh, Today we're talking about tips on how to activate the poet within. I changed that title. Originally I had how to write poetry, but then I was like, I did watch Dead Poet Society as well, like for inspiration. I was like, no, man, I'm just giving tips how to activate. We all have a poet within us. So I changed that title. It's tips on how to activate the poet within, as told by Khalik Sims. My goals and insights for today's presentation is to shatter any doubts of inadequacy as far as poetry. Feeling if you're not a poet or you can't do poetry. Poetry is a muscle. It's like exercising. You just have to start that process. I guess even before that, I'd love to know who, maybe in the chat group, you guys could, everyone could maybe say who is an active poet, writer. You could just write one or I or something like that. I'm just interested to know like who in this group, actually writes poetry. So yes, I'm going to provide examples. I'm going to prove you have the necessary tools to write poetry. I'm going to answer any questions specific to this topic that I can answer. Going forward, why am I qualified to give these tips? I've been an active listener to my poetic flow rhythm for 10 years. I've been writing poetry for 10 years. I don't have much academic, or I haven't read much into it, but I did do some, I admit I did do some research going into this as far as like definitions and different styles and whatnot. But I've been actively listening to my poetic rhythm for 10 years. I've written and published 2 books. One is distributed. And yeah, so this one, Journey Through Perception, is distributed on Amazon and everything. And this one, Letters to the Earth, is published but not distributed. I dedicated this to my wife. I gave this to her on our wedding day. So that's another qualification there. Also, there's no right way or one way to write poetry. Therefore, I am overqualified. There's no way to do it. So I'm your guy. Anyone here so far? Who we got? I got 8. I got 8 messages here. Agnieszka, I have written some occasional poems over the years. Lawrence, he's guilty from time to time. Chris, you used to write a lot. Yes, you mentioned that to me. Brandon, active lyric writer, which people don't always consider poetry. And I'd like to touch that real quick.
On this one, I want to just make a comment for Brandon. I was trying to talk, but I was twice muted. We have the widest possible definition of what poetry is in this group, as established yesterday. So prose is all right. Song lyrics are great. Whatever you choose to express yourself with, it's your own personal expression.
Absolutely. And yeah, I do have a story about that. I wrote a poem. I think, Brandon, you've seen it. I posted it in the creative server. I forget what it's called, but I had a friend of mine. I was on that open mic on minds.com, and I wrote this poem. And a friend of mine, he spun it into a song, and it was fantastic. I didn't know, like, that was the first time that I was like, oh, this is like, poetry is music. Like, it's the same thing. It is writing lyrics. It's, it's pretty much one and the same. So yes, poetry, music, they go hand in hand. Michael, he mainly a consumer, but he would like to know more about artistic use of words. Kara, she used to write poetry. She mentioned that to me as well, and she would like to get back to that. Gabriel used to write creatively years ago, but the muscle has trophy for it. Got it. Chris, yeah, right. Okay, so I think and Willow.
Wait, you have to say out loud that Chris published his personal anthology.
That's right.
Yeah.
He did, and he mentioned that I think in the server and possibly to me in DM. That's true. And Willow, she does mostly poetry and fantasy fiction. That's fantastic. So that's great. We have a large group of poets and others that want to exercise that muscle. And I think I have some pretty cool tips for that. Um, so, like I was saying, hey Eric, like I was saying, I'm overqualified because there is no right way to do this. And like I had mentioned yesterday in yesterday's chat, there is no authority in art. That's something a friend of mine, Mac Vogt, had mentioned, and I love that quote. There's no authority in art, and that's why poetry and art is so successful at challenging authority. So I'll continue with the few definitions of poetry. Um, the first one is a literary work in which special intensity is given to the expression of feelings and ideas by the use of distinctive style and rhythm. Style and rhythm. That's from Oxford. That's an Oxford definition. Um, the second one is poetry is the creation of imagination, experience, and life. I like that one. Third one, poetry is a written and oral tradition composed of rhythmical words or something of one's imagination in a way deemed beautiful and more concentrated than ordinary speech. That those The second, third, and fourth come from a YouTube provider, a YouTube content provider called Advocate of Words, and I really like those definitions. And to me, poetry is really just vibrations. It's an encryption of energy, because it's when you present it, when you put it out there, it gives this feeling. It gives this like transfer of energy. Um, uh, and that's kind of like my interpretation, so to speak. Um, why should you write poetry? I have a few reasons here. To break the rules. There's no real rules for poetry, punctuation, style, any real way to go about it. So it's a great way of just breaking the rules. To practice, practice makes prose. The more you write, the more your writing gets more fluid, with more style. You find your sound better. As a writer in general, poetry has helped me write better and have more prose in my writing. I've been writing for 10 years, so I have some terrible, like in the beginning, my writing was just, it wasn't where it is now. And I have a lot of those in this publication. There's some good stuff, but I go back there and I kind of cringe sometimes reading it. But the more you write, the stronger, your your uh, your writing gets. Um, to save money on therapy, um, I I write a lot of poetry because it's like the therapist that I can't necessarily afford. And it really helps putting all that on a canvas. It helps airing out all those thoughts. Um, it can help you figure out how to feel about a topic. It reminds me that statement right there reminds me of what John Taylor Gatto said in regards to he never knows how he feels about something until he writes about it. And that's exactly how I feel about uh, just topics in general. I don't really know how I feel about it until like I put it down on paper and I air my thoughts out about it. So those are some reasons why you should write poetry. I'll skim through it real quickly again. To break the rules, practice prose, to save money on therapy, and it can help you figure out how you feel. So going forward so now I'm gonna go jump into the tips. Or what I call the holy grail of writing poetry. It's ubiquitous. It's everywhere. Everyone has it. These are all tips and traits that we all have and we all own. Um, so these are the controlled environment for where poetry is incubated. It's the nursery of poetry, is what I wrote down. So consumption is the first of the holy grail. Consumption, literature content, listening for inspiration, reading, watching, listening. That's like the beginning of the tips for writing poetry. You know, listening to podcasts. I've written a number of poems just listening to the lectures. and just having consumption of literature and content gives me the material to write. And you steal, you recycle ideas, is the name of the game. So poets, we're like pirates. We're like pirates of the paper. Second thing is emotions. Um, Emotions is a big part of writing poetry. That emotional impulse. You got to be present. That's one of the tips for me. Like being present in every moment helps me, produce and just write poetry. If you have an overwhelming feeling, an emotional impulse, don't waste it. Use it for inspiration. You have something. There's been times where I'm in the shower and something hits me, and my phone is always right by me, and I will literally get my phone wet and try not to destroy it and write something down. Or if I'm driving, I remember one time I had to pull over and literally write something down because something hit me, or whatever it is, an impulse. I recommend, and that's some of the things that Richard mentions as well, as far as like taking out some of these ideas so that you could have more ideas in its place. Third and last of the holy grail is the ambience, the setting. The setting for me, there's many settings, but one of the settings for me is music. I love to write with music. I think music really helps extract a lot of, it helps with flow and things of that nature. It's an enhancer. Find a quiet place, musical playlist. I actually put a playlist that I created, a few of them, I believe, that I created on the PDF of some like just instrumentals that could help, some of the things that get me in the zone. Or you could even have your choice of enhancement, whether it's a glass of wine or a joint or whatever it is to get you in the zone. Like find your zone. So I'm gonna go on to the trinity of poetry. But this is how it happens for me. Imagery, paint a picture. You want to paint a picture with your poetry. I've been seeing some really great poems in the Poets Corner server, and there's a lot of vivid pictures that are in those examples. You guys could go there and check that out, and just painting pictures using similes, metaphors, analogies. That's really great for poetry. It's really great to paint a picture. Those comparisons, those contrasts. So it's the imagery is the first of the trinity, comparisons, and the third would be flow. You want to flow. You don't necessarily have to rhyme, but you want to have like a flow or rhythm. I have these two analogies that I use for poetry, for rhythm. Poetry is like fishing in the ocean. The fish are your thoughts, and the ocean is the rhythm. So you want to kind of gather those two together, and the possibilities of what comes out of that are innumerable. Here's another analogy: is poetry is like it's like a flute. Not every piper can arouse each snake, but if you find your tune, your snake will follow. Those are some little images, analogies that are kind of poetic, in a way that kind of explain the way you want to approach poetry. So here's some of the types of poems, the type of poems that I've written, and these are examples of different types of rhythm, or like whatever rhythm you want for the moment. Like we have odes, these are a praise of something or someone. Epic type of poem. It's like a lengthy narrative poem. Free verse is my favorite. It's what I've been doing mostly. My first book, I had a lot of epic pieces, really lengthy pieces. I have a few odes, but like the new book that I'm working on, I have a lot more free verse and even journal entries. So there's so many different types of flows and rhythms to poetry. A few materials that I have when I'm writing poetry, I either have a notepad or my smartphone, a desktop. I use a thesaurus, specifically Webster I use, a rhyming app. I use RhymeZone. Sometimes I use that, not every time. I don't really stress too much on rhyming. I have been doing that a little bit lately, but for the most part, you don't really have to rhyme. It's just style and rhythm about it. And I know I'm kind of rambling off some of these things, not really the way I wanted to present it, but I'm just going with it. I'm doing it live. Then you go into like the drafts phase, where you collect your ideas, you sort your ideas out, you combine ideas. I recommend reading them out loud. Um, and then after you've done that, let it rest. I've written poems that um, I went back to months, maybe even a year. I remember one time I wrote a poem, an ode, on like an album, one of my favorite rap albums. And I went back to it a year later and completely reimagine it and change it. So not that doesn't always happen, but just let it rest. You'll have a fresh eye, and that pretty much works for a lot of things in general. And then after you let it rest, you revise it if needed. I don't do a lot of revision. Sometimes I do, but it happens sometimes. So I'm going to share some examples of poetry compositions, and that way I could kind of like show some of the style and the rhythm and things of that nature, and even like me recycling and stealing ideas. All right. So you guys see that? You guys seeing the PDF file?
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. All right. So um, specifically, so the first poem right here is called Poetry, and in gold. So these are excerpts from my upcoming book. So this is exclusive stuff. I don't think I posted some of these everywhere, but so this is exclusive for you guys. So the first one is called Poetry Calls. So poetry calls. When poetry calls, you answer the fucking call. When poetry calls, you drop all other calls. When poetry calls, dial tone. So that's an example. It's a small, short piece. That's kind of like a free verse, just kind of showing an example of that. This is an example of a free verse as well, and an example of me like taking inspiration from everywhere, taking ideas, recycling ideas. So this one is called In the Name of Science. I posted it in the server, so some of you probably read this one, but you see like how I broke it up into different colors and whatnot, and I'll kind of explain that after I read it. Let me just get this thing out. All right. So, in the name of science, science is eerie and still around, making its rounds through revolving doors, spreading its hands to devolving chores, the art of obfuscation, the misinterpreted job description, the gods who create statistics, the lords who spoon feed prescriptions, the crafty magicians, paid for by politicians, scientism, today's deadly religion. The white lab coat is the code of permission to suspend natural law. Through science, the parasites reclassify eugenics and create the platform for pandemics. The fast track of sensation, swept across the nation, shoot for the moon and land on a black budget, they say. The cure is the cover story, so I've heard. Your favorite scientist is nothing. Sorry, I lost my place. Your favorite scientist is nothing but a public relations allegory. Tuskegee experiments live on through present day vaccinations. Don't worry, all this is pure hallucinations. Dr. Fauci, a modern day machination, hidden behind the veil of authority. Behold, the lab of crime, all dressed and well enshrined. So I'm gonna explain these little color coordinated stuff. So the yellow you see here is from a song that I heard. So like I was saying before, the inspiration comes from everywhere. So I'll play a little clip of that, the song that I'm talking about specifically. I know you guys probably want to continue hearing the song because it sounds great. It's a cool song. But I'll just leave it at that for time's
Send
sake.
us a link so we can
Sure.
hear it.
For sure. So yeah, I heard the song and I was like, ooh, that's great. And that was before that's before I even had this idea. And that's why I say keep your notepad, your phone near. Let me just
Pablo, I'm a bit of a fan of the Young Fathers as well. I like them a lot. You're the first person other than myself who's talked about them.
Wow, that's amazing. That's cool. I just found out about them literally like maybe a few weeks ago,
well, they were on the Train Spotting 2, the sequel to Train Spotting. They had a song called Only God Knows on the soundtrack, and that's when they kind of fell into my radar.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah, they have some great music. So I heard that a few weeks ago, and I jotted that down. I had my phone next to me, and I just jot that one line down. Science is eerie. They have Science is eerie when you're still around, but I put Science is eerie and still around. So yeah, keep when you have an impulse, just write it down. The ideas will come together. There's times that like I just collect ideas, and eventually like I'll come back and I'll see what is gathered. If I'm inspired to do something, sometimes I'll even jumble like two different pieces, two different poems together. But that's what I got from that. And that's why I highlighted that in yellow, because I recycled that. The green section is just like any rhymes, revolving, devolving, doors, chores, and stuff like that. So that's kind of like, just the rhyming scheme and pattern. The blue is just comparisons, or just like little pictures, the art of obfuscation. That came from, check this out. So this was, there it is. So Hunter. So this was a conversation we had in the COVID server. And you can read that there. So I go, with that level of falsification, imagine what else is behind the curtain of science. And Gabriel goes, scientism is today's most deadly religion. And that's where you see I kind of recycled that. The art of obfuscation from Hunter, I used that as well. And it continued going on. And so that was before I even wrote the poem. I just gathered these thoughts, and I was like, and then I had told Gabriel, I was thinking of writing a poem on that note. And he goes, I'd like to check it out if you do. And that's kind of the inception, how this piece was created, through recycling ideas, using rhythm and rhymes, and comparisons and things of that nature. So I'm going to go on to the next example, Ephesians 6:12. And that verse, if I remember correctly, it's about that we wrestle not against flesh and blood. So it goes,
nothing has changed on my screen. Should we be seeing what you're looking at?
Oh yeah, okay, here we go. Do you see it now?
Yes.
Yeah, pause it. Thank you, Ignacio.
Oh, and by the way, before you start reading, you were nervous about this?
Well, yeah, I'm just always jittery. I guess because I just overthink and things like that. But I'm having fun.
I'm just saying it right now, so you have a mental anchor for when you're on top of your game, knowing how good your game is. Right. That's why I said that right now.
Appreciate that. So yeah, Ephesians 6:12. That, for whatever reason, that came to my mind. I think I was talking to my brother, and we were talking about that verse, and we were talking about how this is a spiritual war. And it goes, everything stops, yet nothing halts. Coordinated efforts to bring about fault. Problem reacts into solution. Insanity's companion. Statistics. The science of craftiness. The metrics of deception are invisible to the naive. The matrix weaves, burrows through what's left of hope. Yet the laws of nature absorb penetration. Keep the spirit uplifted. So I'm just kind of showing like example of just like a rhythm, and how even just that science poem from before is a poem that I kind of had before, and I just revisited again in this poem. I'm going to continue to The Lost Atlantis. It goes, the world can crumble before us. It can dissolve, leaving only debris at the hem of our trousers, leaving nothing but the rubble of horrid dystopia. The planet can fall off its axis, eradicating its records of Atlas, postponing the advent of evolution. Society can dissolve into pollution, smearing its fog of delusion, forsaking nature's path of harmony, abandoning the admission of retribution. All can cave before us, leaving no trace of ruins. However, our spirit of transformation will erect amidst the ashes, as it has throughout history. And this, I remember now that I'm reading it, I remember exactly where I was and why I wrote this. I was actually watching News World Next week with Josh Sigerson, and he did that documentary on the Atlantis, and he went to like Africa and whatnot, and that kind of just sparked this poem. And I'm just you kind of see the same pattern of like, you know, consuming information, and the information, you know, flows into the poetry, and I kind of digest what I heard, and the ideas just keep going throughout on paper.
No, it's interesting, this poem, because I was watching just before we came on, we were watching James True, episode 107, God's Luminaries. And about halfway through the episode, there's a man in overalls without a shirt on, and he's praying to the ancient gods. And there's a thunderstorm, and he's got this stick he's beating the ground with. And it literally, he could say those words, and it would be fitting for what he was doing. And he was like holding the energy, and then doing this huge prayer to, you know, thunder gods, right? Perun, Thor, whoever.
Right.
And then at the end, he steps away, and the little child goes, "You did a good job."
So you know what? We can reenact that right now. I'm about to think of it.
It was just so great. It was such a great little video, and I think the kid was actually filming it. But yeah, that made me think of it. You guys should check it out. God's Luminaries. Great video.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds great. And yeah, I like to think of art as a pool of consciousness. I say that all the time because like all the ideas are there. It's just like, you know, when you're dipping into the pool, you know, there's different people that come to the pool at that time, and you know, those ideas circle around, and you grab what you grab and whatnot, and it continues circulating. But I do have some, like I said, I have the playlist in the link. I have a few playlists in the link, just you know, so instrumentals, and I also have a free version on my website for a limited time. Is a free version of my book, Journey Through Perception. So it's there for you guys if you want. Snag it now while it's still available, because I'll probably convert that to like one of those lead magnets or something like that in the near future. So while it's...
Are you going to, well, then we just have to give you your email address, our email address. So that's cool too. But are you going to give us the link?
Yeah, it's there
where
on
we
the
can...
PDF. It's on the PDF. I could put it down right here too.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So this is the Poetry Clinic, and if we want to continue to comment on poetry, whatever, would we do it in the poets room? Like, where's the space where we can communicate with each other outside of this meeting?
Yeah, that's one of the things I was gonna say at the end of the presentation. Like, I recommend you guys to check out that PDF and, you know, exercise that poetic muscle, and just drop, you know, what you create in the poetry corner. You know, there've been some really great stuff. Even Chris posted something that a friend of his wrote in the creative room. But if we put it all in the poets corner, as far as for poetry, so, you know, so we have everything in the same area, that just makes sense to me. But yeah, I encourage everyone to, you know, drop whatever creative pieces you have in there going forward with some of these tips. And like I said, like I mentioned in the beginning, you know, this is just about activating that poet. We all have it. It's just that we all have that rhythm, our own style, and it's just about exercising it. Like I said, I've been writing for 10 years, and I finally, like, I'm finally finding my own like little rhythm and my own like style that is kind of unique to me. And it's been like that from the beginning, but I'm now like anchoring in like, okay, this is me. But and it's gonna continue to evolve as I go and as I read more material and things like that. But you know, it's like it's a muscle, like I said, and I encourage everyone to use that poet's corner to drop some jewels and some stuff there. It's been really, I've been loving everything I've been reading there. So yeah, thanks for that question. An excerpt from my first publishing, a distributed publishing. So it goes, fuck your institutions. I am from the conscious university, a vessel channeled through creativity, a raw talent untouched by society. I never came for your help, yet you asked to teach me. I never asked for this talent, it was bestowed upon me. I am speaking a language with no origin. You can't define this anomaly. I am a vessel of creativity. I never asked for your approval. You poke at my frugality and flaunt money at my feet. I am left in defeat, for all I ask is time for creativity. Take your publishing, take your currency, take your advice, and shove it up the dark hole of artificiality. If you can explain my raw talent, enlighten me. Because this talent was never taught. It's been channeled. I am a vessel of creativity, one poured from universal conscious recycling, and when I'm finished, good luck taking it. Because this cycle follows the laws of nature. It follows the next vessel of creativity. Locked tight in fermentation, every word inscripted is encrypted by the source of creation. And this piece really, so that's the ending of that piece. And that's an excerpt from Journey Through Perception. And that was me like just kind of battling with myself as far as like feeling inadequate as a poet, you know, and feeling like I didn't have much like academics at that time for whatever reason. And that was like an impulse that I had. And I went out, maybe I lit up a joint and I just sat down and just aired out all of that. And I do have some tenets in there that I talk about. This is, you know, we are all vessels of creativity, and we all have that ability to create, and it's raw. It's, you know, it's language that is just flow through us, like I said earlier. And so I just want to review after this, review what I said before as far as like the tips. You want to consume, you want to read, watch, listen, or is what I do. It will definitely work for you. You want to listen to your impulses. You feel something, that's the moment. You feel it, you feel mad at something or whatever it is. You have to enable some permissions on your phone. I wrote a piece on that. I posted it on Instagram, and it gets you pissed off. Go ahead, write about it. You know, you are, whatever it is, any impulse, just take that opportunity and write. That's when it's really going to come out. I found myself when I try to write outside of, you know, emotions and impulse, sometimes it doesn't really come out as, you know, as much energy. So I always try to follow that impulse. Create your zone. Get this playlist that I got there, or whatever music you got that gets you in the zone. Ask Lou Gerd or somebody to play some sax or whatever, piano for you, if that gets you in the zone or whatever it is. Create that space, light up a joint, whatever, you know, that helps, brings those juices. Use the tips that I have up there with the Trinity. Find your rhythm, whether it's free verse, an ode, or whatever it is. Find that for the time being, because it changes, it goes. Get your outline.
It really sounds like you're working up to a challenge. Are you going to challenge us to do something? Is that where you're going with this?
Absolutely, yeah. Share in the Poets Corner server. You know, I challenge.
Well, that's not a good challenge. Make us a proper challenge. Like, I want to see one poem written by every single one of you guys by the end of the next week.
Well, there it is.
Too much? I'm always too much.
Yeah, for whoever's open for it. Yeah, if you know the end of next week, you have the brainstorm session, or even, you know what, for the open mic. Why don't we do that? Open mic. So the open mic we had, I don't think I mentioned it earlier before, but it's to be determined, but the time that we agreed upon is August 8th, right, guys? August 8th.
Yeah, well, let's just have it. Even if things change, let's just have it on August 8th.
Sure.
It's a Saturday night. We can all sit
Yeah. Stay
outside,
tuned.
and
We'll keep posting some stuff about it. And I encourage everyone to use some of these tips, or whatever it is, come through to the open mic and share some of that, share those gems, those experiences. So that's the challenge right there. So yeah.
But I really wanted to share my favorite poem ever on the open mic on the 8th. So, but now you're saying I should write one too.
Bring them both.
We'll definitely need 2 hours.
This is like that smoking gun. As far as for changing minds, like minds change through art. That's where it really happens. And I think that's a great opportunity to have a space where we have a lot of creative people here to put their stuff out there, and it could mutate into so many things. So I think at this point, like I said, I'm gonna have that sheet ready, and then I'll put up the replay and the replay for this as well as soon as I can. And I think at this time I'll just kind of let it. Any questions, or Lawrence, if you want to share what you got, and we could put it on the chopping block or whatever it may be.
Nah, suddenly Lawrence is like, holy shit, deer in the headlights.
Yeah.
No, there's no reason for that. That was amazing. Thank you for that presentation. Thank you for the document. Thank you for organizing those thoughts. It's really helpful in kind of taking a more serious approach to this. For me, getting into writing some poetry evolved out of just filling up a page every day at work. It takes about 15 minutes. So it's just like stream of consciousness. And then
when you say filling up a page, is that like in regards to like what you're doing?
Automatic writing, I think he's meaning. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, just like filling up a page in this notebook.
Nice. Got you.
Takes about 15 minutes, actually, usually less. But yeah, it was just the consistency of doing that. Then I started to get more creative, and it became an outlet for, some frustration, especially this year.
Oh yeah. I've been hearing that on the COVID server with everything that's going on. I imagine you got some good, impulses from that.
Yeah, I need to channel the new frustration. It's funny. I was typing up stuff earlier. There was a lot. Well, I mean, it's you kind of influenced me. The creative room started, and then I wrote that no more waiting, and just put it to music, and made a graphic just like you had done, just for fun. I threw it in there, and then I started writing some other stuff similarly. I haven't posted more of it.
He won't abuse them, I promise. I vouch for Lawrence. Lawrence, you gotta smile when we say jokes about you. You look so serious. It's like...
I suffer from RBF.
What's RBF? Resting bitch face?
That's right. Yeah.
Do you have okay, sweet.
All right, so here's the first thing I mentioned that I posted in the creative room. No more waiting. Time for action. No time left for mere distraction. Thanks to those who've led the way, and what have I done? Been led astray. I'm fighting demons. I feel them in my gut. They creep and creep, moving up and up and up. In my head, I feel the fog. I hope for relief, stuck in this bog. I feel my words make little sense. I'd like to put that in the past tense. Every day I feed this beast. I give my time, but I find no peace. I wish that I would serve no master, temporarily trapped in this disaster. It moves so slow, nearly imperceptible. I'm chipping away at the walls and chains. I now realize they're in my brain. So with that one, yeah, one night I was just kind of riffing on the guitar and put it to music, and it's very simple. It's not.
That's the one you posted up? That was like
Yeah,
one of the first ones, right? Yeah, I remember that.
yeah. So it's, I don't know. It is what it is. I
Great.
just kind of threw it out there. I didn't really work on it. Actually, most of these, it's just kind of been a one-shot thing. So I'd like to, put some more effort into that. And like I said, your document, this will help with that, I think.
Can
Can I
read
chime in
some
real quick?
more.
Can I chime in?
Yeah, please.
First of all, I want to say thank you, Lawrence, for sharing that. Like, we're, like I said, we're planning a weekend away, so I'm kind of like having this on in the background, but this sucked me back to my computer so I could read along with what you were saying. And I really like it. And I really appreciate your courage in not only sharing the piece, but sharing the actual piece, like, so we could read it along with you. And I have two questions. One, do you have a name for this poem?
No more waiting.
No more waiting. And do you like it? Do you like it?
I did. I do. I'm fine with it. It was just
Fine with it.
It was kind of inspired by what I saw Pablo Khalik Sim doing, and I just did it, and then I just put it up there, and then I put it to music, and I made a graphic, and I'm just happy with that as an exercise, you know.
Do you consider it a work in progress or something that you're probably just going to let sit and move on?
This one, I think it could be a work in progress, but I'm fine with it just being, that's kind of a starting point.
I'm suggesting that you lean into this and find until the place where you love it, because I think it's really good. It really sucked me in, and I think it's really good. And I sense that you're just fine with it, but I think you could dig into it a little bit and actually arrive at a place where you love it and where there's no hesitation in sharing it because you are so happy with the result, because it's really good.
Wow. All right. Well, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think that's, I find myself giving, like, the people I know, like in my personal life who end up writing poetry, I think there's a lot of times there is a, for lack of a better term, a lack of confidence in what they're producing. So they'll write something in one session, get it out of their system, and then move on. And it's almost like they don't want to go back and look at it. Not that that's the case with you, but I'm constantly finding myself saying, keep going, like build it. Like if you're painting a picture, it might take a while to get all the nuance you want, work of art, or like if you're turning into a song, you want to get every how do I say it? Every bit of it constructed in a way that you want to present it. And I think that sometimes people who write poems, they write them and they just they get out of their system and they move on. And there's an opportunity there to make that stream of consciousness flow, sort of like mind vomit poem, into a really beautiful piece with a little more attention. And I think you have something like that here. I think that's why that lie is important to expose. Someone like Mozart practiced day in and day out from dawn till dusk every single day to become a master, and to become a master artist, you have to take it seriously, and you have to invest in yourself and invest in your work. And when you have these lies, like Shakespeare was just, some moron who was able to produce these brilliant, timeless pieces, he it was whoever wrote it, whether it was one guy or a guild, they knew their shit, and they were educated, and they traveled, and they knew all this stuff. And to teach people that genius is just random and
But that's
expert
just
level
our whole
artistry is just
history.
random is a crime. So
Now you're gonna get me on the soapbox of history's all made up.
well, of course, that's a whole other topic. But you know, that's why one of my potential slogans for my course is works of art take work. You have to work at it. And I think that it comes from lack of confidence. So when we don't really believe in what we're doing, we'll just write it, we'll put something out there and say, okay, well, there, I did it. And now I'm going to move on and do something else. But, you know, face it, deal like, wow, I created this thing. I just produced this piece of clay. Now, how am I going to sculpt it to something that I'm like, hell yeah, I just made that, you know? So that's my 2 cents. Come to my course on Tuesday night.
Yeah. From that, I do want to say I appreciate that input, Benny, because that's how I felt for a long time with my poem, and my wife could definitely attest to that. Like for a long time, like, I've been writing for 10 years. I haven't really openly come out and really share my poetry and like come to grips with like, yeah, I'm a poet until I published my first book. So I definitely relate with what Benny is saying. And once you get there, and once you build that confidence, you know, it'll show through and through. But I appreciate that input because I couldn't have said it better and couldn't extracted that dialogue exchange any better. And it hit me. That hit me because yeah, that's how I felt. And so thank you for that. But yeah, I'm definitely open to moving and, you know, having anybody else share what they want, any questions, whatever it is. Agnieszka, if you could share that and we could return or circle back or whatever it is.
Sure. Sounds good. But I didn't mean to take away from Lawrence. I just didn't want us to move away and say, okay, we're done without actually reading this. This is from Willow, and it's her poem. And she said she doesn't share her poetry often. And I'm not going to delve into it. I don't know what the reasons are. She didn't want to read it, but she said she would prefer I would read it. So I can read this. So this poem is about writer's block, about sitting and not being able to write.
Very fitting. Yes.
Blank pages filled with blank lines, the place where words cease to exist. Empty thoughts cannot disguise the place feelings defy the logic. Bare emotion dissect the past, the place longing never leaves. Hollow understanding filled the pages, the place her spirit began to exist. Yeah,
I relate with that. That was great. Yeah. It was great presentation too, Agnieszka.
She said she trusted me. I had to live up to it.
Yeah, I see.
Was it good, Willow? Did I do okay?
You actually read it exactly how I imagined it in my mind, and I was tickled.
That's so cool, because she was trying to give me instructions on how to read it. I'm like, dude, you give up your power when you tell me to read it. I'm going to read it however I read it. Of course. I know you. You're in my heart.
Yeah, that was great. I'd love to hear you, you know, I think maybe even Benny can, you know, assist with that because that's the same thing I have. And I think most of the time is because I just don't memorize my pieces. So I'm always like stumbling and I just have to get like tips on that. That's why I'm really interested in the Parrhesia course. But yeah, I had a lot of that myself as far as like sharing poetry. But that was great. That was really great. I'd love to even read that. Like have it, if you could put it in the chat. Because I it's different layers for me. Like I could hear it, and then I could read it, and I just get different things from it.
That's up to the writer. I will let her share it with you guys. Poets Corner, Willow?
Yeah.
Are you willing to do that?
Yeah, I'll put it in there.
Awesome. Thank you.
Anybody else questions, comments. Otherwise, we could return back to Lawrence. I love it. I love it. Thanks for sharing that.
And before we end, I want to say special thanks to our special guest, because we only have one special guest on this call, and it's Yvette. Thank you very much.
Yeah, she's killing it in the chat room. Yeah,
she is.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's about to drop soon. Thank you. This was I had such a great time. I'm just super grateful for everyone who showed up.
Michael has something to add.
Yeah, go for it.
You got a minute.
I was just gonna say that you know, you guys are really the epitome of the communicators in our group of people, and you know, your words and just what Benny described essentially is the value that you bring to this community. And communication, you know, plus trust equals innovation, and that's essentially the way that as a community we can really change the world, you know, because we can turn each other into superheroes. You know, we can expose each other's superpowers and really make a difference, and you guys can communicate that. And you know, I see so much hope in the future with this group of people that I'm just truly excited about what we've got, you know, coming our way. It's awesome.
Stay tuned. We got the open mic and brainstorming and everything else that's going on. There's a lot going on, and this is where it's at. And I'm super grateful that everyone tagged along, and I'd like to hear that piece, Michael. Coming soon. And yeah, whoever has anything, drop it in the Poets Corner, and stay tuned for that Parrhesia, and